Welcome to Straight Talk on Project Management, an unscripted and unedited video series with Stoneseed's David Cotgreave. Get in touch with David and find out more about Stoneseed at stoneseed.co.uk. Episode 3, Talent Gaps, IR35 and the Benefits of Project Management as a Service. I keep hearing of IT project talent shortages. Are there recruitment challenges? Are clients telling you that?
There are recruitment challenges, and we see those, and clients see those, and it's quite interesting in terms of when you look at why those challenges are there, because the challenge has always been there in terms of finding good quality people with knowledge and experience. So that hasn't changed, but the availability of resource seems to have changed, and quite significantly actually. And I think there's probably a few reasons for that. So I think the importance and the value of project management is understood. People have learned a difficult truth in a lot of instances about why they should be viewing things as projects and delivering things as projects. So there's probably more people looking for project managers and advertising for project managers. So I think that's one point. But I think actually there's been quite a significant shift in people's view of their career, of their work-life balance, of what's important to them, and hey, why wouldn't people have assessed that? And I think there's quite a few people who've said, frankly, I'm going to go and do something else. Whatever that may be, and we've got examples of fairly radical. I'm going to go and do something else, complete departure from project management space, and I think that quite a few people are doing that, and you therefore are the pool and the available pool of people is less. More people are trying to access that pool, and it's a challenge, but there's still very, very good people out there. You just have to work that a bit harder to find them.
And how has IR35 affected the industry?
So IR35, it's been around in the public sector for a number of years. It was going to be introduced into the private sector. That was then delayed, and it's now back in the private sector. And it's for those who don't know, it's really looking at the way that individuals are taxed, and if you are deemed to be in disguised employment, then you should be taxed in the same way as if you were employed. That's the kind of fundamental principle. And there's a number of tests that are applied to a contractor, for example, when undertaking a project role, again as an example, about do they have an ability to substitute, i.e. can they provide somebody else? Who's in control? So is somebody telling them what to do, when to be there, where to be, etc. And the slightly, and they're relatively straightforward to understand. And then the third tricky one, which is mutuality, if I could say it, of obligation. So if you provide me this service, am I obliged to pay for it? And those three tests, if you like, are the things that clients need to understand and need to apply to a particular piece of work that they're perhaps bringing a contractor in to deliver. And if they don't, if it's assessed incorrectly, then there's penalties and fines and what have you. And you just need to look at the public sector who've been fined astronomical amounts of money because they've assessed somebody as incorrectly being outside IR35 when in fact they were inside IR35. And there's lots of stuff on the internet and what have you about the ins and outs of IR35. So we'll leave the mechanism of it there. In terms of what does it mean for our industry and what we're seeing and our clients, it's added a layer of uncertainty, it's added a layer of complexity. Somebody's got to make a decision. From a contractor's point of view, if they're deemed as being inside, it means their take-home pay is less. If they're deemed outside, then it stays the same. So not surprisingly, a lot of contractors are saying, well, if you deem it as being inside, then I'm going to put my rates up. Does that encourage people to assess things correctly? Do they fully understand how to assess things? Not really sure. So that's a bit of the uncertainty. The complexity is somebody's got to undertake this process. Somebody has got to undertake these assessments, and there are various tools that are out there. One directly from the government. There's paid for tools that provide some form of insurance around the conclusion that you reach, but somebody's got to go through that. So it's another layer of onboarding, if you like, before you can actually get the resource stuck in to deliver your project. So it's a challenge. There is a but though, and the but is, if your project resource is already paying tax via payroll, i.e. they're an employee of an organisation, then IR35 is not a concern for that particular project or programme. And therefore, from our perspective, we're seeing lots of people coming and asking us about providing that resource, because most of our resources are payroll. So it's not a consideration. So that complexity, that risk goes away. So it is changing and having an impact on the marketplace. We're seeing quite a lot of contractors wanting to move into into permanently employed roles because of the uncertainty on their side. And therefore, it's got a bit of time, I think, to play out yet. Because of delays to a whole raft of things, not just IR35 over the last few years, but it'll be interesting to see how that plays out and what the real impact is on day rates and that kind of thing within project contract marketplace.
What are the biggest advantages? What are the biggest benefits that your customers gain from PMaaS, and how are you helping recovery and future-proofing?
PMaaS is a number of different things, but fundamentally it's access to experienced, knowledgeable resources on an on-demand basis. So clients will come to us because they've got a particular need around a project, and that need may be, we need somebody with particular experience, we need somebody with knowledge of a particular market, or it may be, well, we just don't have anybody on our employed, pool. So we need to augment our resource. So resource augmentation is a typical route by which people will find us. But in terms of the benefits, so you're getting access to an individual, that's what we are as an organisation. Our colleagues are a group of experienced, knowledgeable project professionals who can deliver that expertise against a set of defined objectives to help a client deliver those successful project outcomes that I'm so passionate about us delivering. And the way in which they do that is by making sure it's appropriate for what the client needs. So we could go into one of our clients who has a full, portfolio management office. They have all of the structures, all of the governance mechanisms in place. They have very good communication channels, etc., where we will fit in and we will work to that methodology. We then have clients who perhaps don't have that level of governance and structure, but still need the same outcomes. They still need a project delivered efficiently, effectively, for value, etc. And that's about making sure that you're picking the right bits, I suppose, out of a life cycle or a methodology or a tool set. I'm very careful to use life cycle methodology and tool set because one of the blogs that I've written once got some feedback that you're talking about a life cycle and it isn't. So I'm now very clear to make that differentiation that talk about the three as a group. And it's about making sure that you're delivering what's important for that client to achieve those outcomes. So because our people are experienced, they're able to pick the bits that are right, and right sizing, whatever you want to call it, but we're big believers in making sure that it's appropriate, and it's appropriate for the project, it's appropriate for the environment, and it's appropriate for the client and the stakeholders. And we all know that people consume information in different ways. We all know that people's attention spans are different. We all know that people have different priorities, and making sure that you can address as many of those through your project delivery as you can is really, really important. So that experience is fundamentally the key reason I think that people are coming to us. But a very close second is the fact that it is on demand. The service, you come to me and you say, I have a need for a project manager to help us with delivery of our new CRM solution. And we have a conversation, we understand what it looks like broadly, what the shape of it is, and we say, well, what do we think that looks like in terms of resource requirement? And we say, well, we're not quite sure, because it's going to change, because we need to bring in some business analyst resource, we need to bring in the partner organisations from the software vendor, we need to access perhaps some of the stakeholders who are in the States. It could be a bit lumpy, as I refer to it. And when it's lumpy, what you don't want to do is go out to a contract market, for example, and commit to 5 days a week for 6 months or 12 months, when in fact you might not need the resource 5 days a week for 6 months or 12 months. And if you come to us, you're not committing to that. So if it's 2 days a week for 5 weeks, 3 days a week for 6 weeks, and then 5 days a week for 6 months, that's absolutely fine. If you think it's 5 days a week for 6 months, and on week 4 we work out that actually it's 3 days a week, that's fine as well. And if something really, really bad happens, such as the pandemic, and you have to down tools and stop, you can do that as well. So that flexibility has always been crucial to our model and our value, I suppose, to clients. I think increasingly so now, because there's no contractual commitment.
Next time, it's all about the future of project management. You can get in touch with Stoneseed's David Cotgreave and find out more about Stoneseed at stoneseed.co.uk. In the meantime, thank you for watching and goodbye.